We've been talking about this for how long?
Too long.
Yeah.
How many years? Too many
Yeah, I don't
years.
know. It's been a long time, but it's exciting to finally be doing this and just, airing stuff out and having an excuse to talk to each other once in a while, which is great.
Yeah.
Um, I don't really know where to start. I think, there's been a lot of stuff going on the last couple of weeks. I mean, Happy New Year to you, by the way.
Yeah, you too, man. No, it's been great so far. Pretty chill New Year for me. How about you?
Yeah. It was all right. We went bowling last night, New Year's Day.
Nice.
So my left arm's a little sore.
Yeah. I
Um,
forget you're a lefty.
yeah, yeah, and trying to impress my in-laws, right? So
There you go.
I threw a 177. I thought that was okay for having not bowled for 10 years or something.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad. When's the last time you went bowling?
Dude, it's been a long time, and I'm not sure I've ever bowled a 177. So nice job.
My brother's bowled multiple perfect games.
What?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Wow. Yeah,
It's
I
just
know. One of my best friends when I was 14, he was like a semi-professional bowler when he was a teenager, and yeah, perfect games over and over and over. And I don't get it.
I mean, it's a special skill. I look at it like any sort of intelligence. It's just like an intelligence of connecting your mind to your body and being able to just do the same rhythm over and over again. Golf's the same way, I think. If you
Yeah,
get that consistent swing and you know exactly how it should feel every time, and you just do the same thing over and over.
I'm not good at that either. What are you saying, Dane?
We like to do too many different things. It's like, oh, what if I try this? Let's change it a little bit this way. And it gets too boring to repeat the same thing over and over, right?
Yeah, no specialty at all.
Yeah, no, no, we're generalists. That's a good thing.
Yep.
Well, the one thing that I want to talk about was the bird flu. But before we get into that, I wanted to get your thoughts on the last 24 hours because I haven't really listened to this at all. I don't really know what's going on. If you have any details on this, I'm curious to hear your take.
What happened in the last 24 hours?
Well,
What
I
has
guess
happened?
there was an attack, some sort of attack in New Orleans, and then there was another one in
Yeah.
Las Vegas.
I don't think they're connected. I don't know. That everybody's looking for headlines. The one connection I found is they both seem to rented their cars on Turo or something. But yeah, this New Orleans thing. There's what 10 people dead, 30 some people injured, and this guy was ranting about wanting to join Al Qaeda or something, and talking about killing his family just weeks before. So, um, yeah, and part of why I want to have these types of discussions is talk about this. It's a sickness that we have right now
Mm.
in this country and around the world, and what do we do about it? How do we get closer as a community? Like we talked about before, we've got to talk to people we don't agree with, not run them over with cars. Um, yeah, it's really sad. Really, really sad.
It is, and just the commitment to an ideology that makes you want to take the lives of other people just
Hmm.
doesn't seem like a healthy ideology in general. I mean, I understand that we have dramatically conflicting ideas of God and what's right and wrong and all those different things. And I
Hmm.
know that there's not a universal answer that everyone's going to agree upon. So it's difficult to bring everyone together on a topic like this, right? But at the same time, these are things that are really traumatic. And of course, we're fortunate enough to live in the United States where we are not faced with constant terrorist attacks and bombs going off and starvation in the streets and everything else. But uh, it's very real, and I think for a lot of people in the United States, they're starting to get a little bit uneasy. And there's people that have been predicting that there's going to be more of these attacks and that they're Al Qaeda and ISIS based. So, what do you know? What do you think on that?
Yeah, I think I don't. I hope it's just rhetoric, that the open border policy, all these illegal immigrants coming in, that it's going to lead to more attacks like this. I hope that it's just the right attempting to scare us into voting that way in this last election. But I don't think it is. I don't think it's just rhetoric, and that scares me a little bit. I'm glad to not be working in a mall anymore. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because there were days, where I definitely felt a bit worried coming to work, and yeah, again, I go back to this sickness. We're all searching for a purpose, and none of us agree on what that purpose is. And when you have such a huge population of young men not working right now, where are they putting that energy, right? They're not out in the fields farming. They're not working these manual labor jobs anymore. They're sitting at desks or just not working at all, choosing not to participate. And what are you going to do with that? When that, coupled with all the policies and the agendas and the ideology of the left telling you that you're too manly, you're too masculine, you have too much testosterone, and you start thinking something's wrong with you over and over. And that's a tough place to be, having no purpose, thinking something's wrong with you. And then it leads to you, just attacking people. And then this Cybertruck, this guy who's a special forces Green Beret, rents a Cybertruck, loads it up with fireworks and gasoline and a bunch of explosives, and blows it up outside of Trump Tower in Vegas. What's that about?
I mean, it certainly seems to have some sort of symbolism, right? With Elon Musk and Donald Trump, there's certainly some implied message with that. But what do you suppose that would be?
I don't know. I don't know if we know enough about this guy yet to know what his motivation is. Haven't looked into it a ton. But again, we have people that are dealing with a lot that have been Green Berets and soldiers, and both my uncles were in Vietnam, and they wouldn't talk about some of the stuff that they dealt with in Vietnam, even into their 70s, right? So I can't imagine what these young men in their 30s and early 40s and 20s even are dealing with right now. And they're highly trained people that were trained to kill people. And it's scary, again, to not have a purpose. To right now in our country, we're so tribal, and we're fighting amongst each other, and we're dividing ourselves and our own families. And obviously this guy in Vegas was trying to send a message. I don't know what message that is.
Well, I think that one of the nice things about doing these videos and having these conversations is that we can take a current event like that and we can discuss it, as opposed to just consuming whatever media outlet is telling us we should believe, right? Because that's part of the challenge, I think, is I almost prefer to know the event without the story behind it, if you will, because it allows us to kind of converse about what the potential motives would be. And you always kind of wonder too, like how much of this information that we're being fed about this guy, and if it was this guy, right? I mean, even sometimes we're not sure that the person that they've arrested or they've identified as the perpetrator is really the person that was involved. And I don't know if that's the case here or not, but it's hard not to, for me anyway, immediately dismiss whatever the narrative is coming from mainstream media now, because they've just proven so many times over and over and over again that they want to control the way that we think about stuff. and not give us the opportunity to have these conversations and to discuss what do we think has actually happened, right?
Yeah, and in the attention economy we have nowadays, right? Fear sells, right? So I think that in a way that is perpetuated for sure in the media. A hopeful story doesn't do as well as a fear-based story, and maybe they don't want us to have all the answers. But I want to know what is motivating these people. Because clearly, I think it's a lack of purpose. I talked to a guy at work today about, he said something, and I go, oh, he's having he's dealing with his nihilism or something, and he didn't know what it meant. And I said, look it up. You're about to have an existential crisis. And he goes, do you want me to read the definition? I go, no, I've been there.
Yep.
And he was certainly there today, where nothing mattered. The values didn't exist, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it helped him to realize that he was kind of doing that. And hopefully it got him out of it. But I think we all get to that point in our lives where we're questioning things, we're trying to find our purpose. But what's the difference between that question and the action of loading a Cybertruck up with explosives, or renting a vehicle on Turo and plowing through a bunch of people in the middle of the night? What's the difference between that? Is it mental illness? Are we too caught up talking about mental illness? Like we have so much time on our hands nowadays that we aren't, I don't know, we're not exhausted at night, so we don't sleep well. We're not working hard jobs. I don't know. There's so many factors that our society is so different than it used to be. And maybe these mental illnesses, they were too taboo to talk about. People just didn't deal with them. Or it's our diets, and it's the fact that we don't exercise as much, and we don't have outlets or purpose. And I don't know. It's a complicated thing, but I don't know what would drive somebody to kill ever. Even in self-defense, I think I would struggle with it. So I don't know what drives people to do these tragic things.
I was talking to a guy. I'm not going to tell you where I was talking to him because I don't want to identify him, but this guy is like all about warmongering, and he's all about, hitting the nuke button and just obliterating anyone as soon as anyone crosses him. And he kind of like gets off on it. And it's a little concerning to me because it's not my nature to want to just wipe people off the face of the planet. And it shocks me that that's something that's a comfortable conversation for some. And maybe a screw is loose there too, but it's definitely not something that's really unusual. Like just to come into contact with other people that you are interacting with at a grocery store or at work or wherever, and they feel comfortable sharing these types of really dark thoughts. I don't think that people would share those dark thoughts and not actually be thinking them. I think that it exists somewhere in their psyche that, they're just so angry about something maybe that they want to be able to take it out on someone, and somehow that's going to give them some release from this pain and anger that they have. I don't know.
Yeah. And, it will come out what I believe on these talks. But in the Bible, it tells us that we're drawn to the darkness. And I really do believe that. And I think it's a battle that we have internally to stay away from that darkness, right? And some people are more adept at doing that than others through maybe the way they were raised or whatever. And I think we have a crisis in this country that I think is fixable, but it's become much more difficult with the internet to fix it, right? Because like you and I have talked about in the past, we can surround ourselves with people that we agree with, We
Right.
can live in these echo chambers and
Mhm.
never leave them. So our beliefs that may not even be true become solidified into ideology, and it just increases our hatred for others. It's scary.
Mhm.
It's scary.
You ever noticed how it only really takes a few people to think the same way as you for you to really be convicted in your thoughts and just like, I know that what I believe is true because two or three other people agree with me, right? There seems to be some small number that you need to hit as a threshold to feel like, yeah, what I believe makes sense because look at these other people that agree with me. And you get that so easily with the internet.
Yeah.
You can post any absurd idea on TikTok. And if you get 20 likes and a few comments, you're like, all right, let's go. I'm onto something here, right?
Yeah.
And there is this desire to like continue that narrative and take it to more extreme lengths. And maybe along the way you discover a lot of really cool stuff, which is what I feel I've done through this process. But you also have to have that awareness of the possibility of like you're completely coming unglued here.
Yeah. And being able to discern those things when you're coming unglued
Right.
is probably pretty difficult. Like the whole flat Earth movement. For a
Mhm.
moment, I was like, maybe is it? Is the
I
Earth flat?
still, I still like. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hear this guy out, right?
But recently, right? They took a big group of flat earthers down to
To
Antarctica
Antarctica, yeah.
to witness the 24-hour sun, and they filmed it the whole time.
Hmm.
Of
Well, they're
course, there
gonna,
was a 24-hour sun because the world is a globe.
but they're
Um,
gonna find some sort of new explanation that goes cohesively with their established belief that the world is flat, right? So there's going to be some new nuance to their story that justifies that phenomenon. That's what I expect is going to happen, or they're just going to say, nope, what they say they saw, they didn't actually see it, and just the plausible deniability of it all because they've been so certain for so long that it's what they, and to their credit, like there's been some pretty wild explanations that I've seen. I'm like, it's not like some idiots are just like, yeah, the water would just fall off the edge. I mean, they've got some pretty plausible scenarios that kind of describe the whole thing with the stars and Antarctica and everything else, and even maybe different land masses that exist outside of what we know to be our Earth. And not to get down the flat Earth topic too far, but
I didn't know I was talking to a flat earther.
you're not. But
I know, I'm just kidding.
but I also don't like to take anything um, that I've only learned through experts and take it without any consideration of the alternative. And that's one thing that I feel has really changed for me over the last couple of years is devotional knowledge is helpful for us to fill in the blanks for a lot of different things, but
Mhm.
it doesn't replace firsthand knowledge. And I don't I don't know how to bridge the gap on all of it. I don't think you can. And that's part of the joy of having these conversations is you feel like you get closer to understanding something more directly than just because your Sunday school teacher or your geography teacher told you this is what it is, right? Um, but that said, no, I'm still embracing the globe and not the flat Earth. So we're okay there.
You just got to look up at the moon, buddy. Just look it up. Look up tonight. And you'll
And
see.
you know what I did tonight? And I don't know
It's
if you
beautiful.
noticed, it's really clear out tonight. So you can see like the silhouette of the rest of the moon.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was walking over here and I got my little Stargazer app out and I was, oh, there's Jupiter and there's Mars and man, the cosmos just absolutely blows my mind. And that
Same.
that is like many podcasts that we could cover just on that topic alone. But uh, I don't want to venture down all these different rabbit holes and tangents. So coming back to the motives that men have,
Yeah.
I want to know how much you think it is driven by money.
So I was going to say that about flat Earth, right? There's a lot of money involved. So they're going to go down to Antarctica. They got people to raise a bunch of money for them to go down there. So their incentive to say, oh, well, the Earth's round, I'm sorry, guys, is like zero, right? There's no
Yeah.
incentive for them to do that because the money dries up, right?
Hmm.
So and that's essentially our entire economy, our entire medical system, our entire pharmaceutical system, like everything revolves around the dollars and the attention. So yeah, that's a scary thing to think of.
Hmm. It is. I mean, I feel like everything that we are surrounded by, everything that we're told even seems to have some sort of financial incentive component to it where, we've heard the phrase follow the money, right?
Hmm.
And you can do that with so many different things to the point where it's really hard to trust something or someone if it seems like there's any sort of financial benefit to that information. So yeah, the flat Earth is a good example, right? Because yeah, if they have access to the funds, um, they're going to want to continue that flow. And I mean, in the last 12 months alone, I look at our administration and just think about how much of that, how many of the decisions, um, how much of the exchanges across the oceans were done purely out of that motive of just, I want more money. And
Hmm.
is there even a future where we can establish humanity without a fiat currency? I mean, it didn't always exist, but can it go away again? Like, I don't know that we can ever get to that point now that we're so ingrained with that system.
We're much after World War II. We're much more intertwined, right?
Mhm.
And that's essentially what the U.S. became after World War II. Is we promised to let imports and exports happen around the world. We're going to police the seas, essentially,
Mhm.
and that has made a lot of countries incredibly wealthy. And it's some of the benefits of that is it's taken a lot of people out of poverty, right? Um, but we've seen over the past several decades, the powers consolidate, and now we have what we have, where we can't trust our government because they're essentially spying on everyone. They're watching this right now. Who knows, right?
Right.
And they know everything we do at every waking moment. And some people are okay with that. And in fact, most people are okay with that. And we
Well,
just think
and
that's part of life.
how many people are naive to that too? I think that's the other part of it too, is that a lot of people just, that's not happening. That's just, and not willing to consider all the evidence that suggests that no, this absolutely is happening. They've admitted to it. They're
Mhm.
in cahoots with all the different major tech players. And when they're not, they start to throw fits and threaten to take down companies because they aren't playing by their rules. So, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, but it's amazing to me how many people are simply in denial of that actually going on too.
Right. Like, what are your thoughts on them trying to ban TikTok? Is it purely they can't control TikTok?
Exactly. That's
Okay.
100% what it is. I think that because they don't have as much influence, even though all the databases are stored here in the United States, and they claim that the concern is that this information is going to leak to the Chinese and it's not a Chinese owned application. It's they have to play this game of like what the actual threat is because they can't tell us what they really are concerned about, or people be like, no, F you, like we're going to keep our TikTok app. And so
Hmm.
that's what's interesting to me. And to bring it back to Trump and not to sing his praises, because I'm not crazy about the guy in a lot of ways. And he said we really are going to take a strong look at keeping TikTok. Well, the reason that he's looking at that is because he won a lot of voters through that application. So
Hmm.
he's got a monetary incentive to keep TikTok alive. And so he's acting based on that incentive. I don't think he's doing it out of the goodness of his heart. I don't think he's doing it out of the goodness of humanity. No, it's just about what does he benefit from it? Because that's the only narrative he's been able to express in terms of why he's a fan of TikTok. So, but no, I think that TikTok is purely being attacked for the fact that it's not Google, it's not Apple, it's not one of these major US players that the government already has their fingers in and is able to control.
So who owns TikTok? Like if we follow the money, like we've been talking about, is it?
Yep.
I forget. Is it Tencent or?
ByteDance, I think, is the primary
ByteDance.
owner, right? And then,
Okay.
there's some private entities and stuff that are a part of that ownership. So there's some Chinese ownership, like indirectly, but it's not like operated by the Chinese government by any means. And again, like not trying to just take devotional knowledge as the end all be all, because this is simply what I've been able to find in the little bit of time I've spent researching it. But
Well,
I don't think that it is.
Well, the China and these Chinese companies have, I forget, it's Smithfield. They own they own Smithfield, which is a major meat packer. They package the majority of pork in the country. That seems crazy to me for people not to know that, and for the government not to be like, really, China owns our entire pork packaging system, but they're complaining about TikTok. It seems silly to allow a supposed foreign adversary to control some of our food and be him and Han about TikTok. I don't know. It's
Well, that's
crazy
just
to me.
it. It doesn't add up, right? And it doesn't add up because that's not the real reason. If that were the real reason, then that explanation would kind of confuse it, but it doesn't confuse it at all because it's simply not the reason that they're trying to get rid of it in the first place.
Yeah.
It's interesting with the Chinese kind of having an influence on our food system, because obviously the food system is another area where we've really been concerned about how healthy our country is, right? And all the crap that's being put into our food that isn't being put into the same food in other parts of the world. So let's earmark that topic, because I really think that we could do a deeper dive on that, and it means a lot to me. That was one of the major reasons I was behind RFK before he backed out.
Yeah, same.
And I'm excited to see what he might be able to bring to the table. But yeah, that's a conversation for another time.